Hey, and welcome to episode 3 of Learning to Learn. Today, we're going to kind of be mending some ideas together. I guess maybe closing some things out. And those two things are that we're going to be discussing like when or what I think creates tilt in ourselves, as well as how in the moment of things we should be talking to ourselves, is maybe the simplest way to put it. So, this is an idea from the book of The Inner Mind Game of Tennis. So, not an idea that like is unique to me, but something that I think can be applied to competition and esports pretty easily. And it's the idea that inside of us there are like two voices or two people. Um, One of them we can call the doer, and that's the person like executing. That is you in the moment, attempting to play in flow state. You in the moment doing things. That's the doer. And then there's the teller. The teller is your game plan, your ideas. The person telling you what to do. Um, and so with those two things that are inside of you, how do they communicate? What does that do to us while we play? And I think that those two people talking, that miscommunication between them, is what creates tilt. And so what I mean by that is if the teller doesn't trust the doer. So if the teller um, tells us to do something and then the doer messes it up, and now the teller either gets frustrated with the doer, or the teller begins to doubt what the doer can do. Um, you know, this looks a lot of different ways, but I'm going to speak for myself personally. Uh, if I tell myself to do something, and then I mess up the execution on that, the next time I'm in a position and I am thinking or like about to tell myself to do something, I'm gonna like second guess myself and I'll be like, well, can I do this? Um, and that sort of, you know, judgment and not believing in the doer is what I think creates tilt. The more and more we do that, the more and more we start to allow the teller to downplay the doer's ability. Um, the more we tilt, the more upset we get about things. So what do we do? How do we get the two to speak well to one another? How do we get less miscommunication, and more, like happiness and and trust between the two? And I think that comes down to what we had talked about last time. When should we be judgmental? Right? Not in the moment is the summary of the previous episode. And so then we have to create really clear and defined boundaries of like what and when the teller and the doer communicate with one another. The way I like to break it down is the teller really only talks in between games, or like before and after a set. Um, I don't think for me it works for the teller to try and come up with like a new game plan or to like tell the doer what to do like in the moment. I don't operate that way. I think that really like clutters my brain, and it really gets me to question myself. Um, I think I just like perform better if I have a game plan, and I continue to stick to that game plan, whether or not I'm executing it properly, um, and then reevaluate, in between games or like after the set is over. And the doer shouldn't really be trying to like reach to the teller, or like reach out to the teller. We shouldn't really be attempting to be like, oh man, like I'm failing this. Like what could I be doing differently, teller? Because that's sort of like self doubt, and trying to like reach out for another game plan is what really like creates confusion for me, and it really gets me to just like think less than do. And I don't think that's very helpful in the moment of playing. Um, so those are the two like people inside of you. And what's really tough is that the teller has a really important job, right? Creating a game plan, and thinking of ways to like adapt, thinking of different things to do. That's important, and that's hard. And the doer has a really hard job. They have to actually put that into motion. Um, and so neither of them have capability to replace or do better what the other one does, right? Like the doer can't think as well as the teller can. The teller can't do as well as the doer does. Um, And so when they don't trust one another, when they're arguing, when they're fighting, um, that's just going to create chaos and create a lot of insecurities and mistakes. So attempting to have them just trust one another is really important. And what that trust looks like is different for other people. For me, acknowledging that mistakes are human, mistakes are okay, and mistakes can even be good sometimes, is how my teller and my doer get along. I don't think if my teller was okay with that, my doer would be able to execute. But for some people, I know that they actually would rather like hear what they're doing wrong in the moment, and that is what helps make their doer make corrections or to get better. Um, so figure that out for yourself. You know, if in the moment you're okay hearing like, ah man, like I should have done this, um, and then you go back into doing and you do it better, then that's great. You know, like that's how your teller and your doer communicate. If you're like me, in the moment when you make a mistake, being like, "Oh man, I did that wrong." That doesn't work for me. That just clutters my brain. So rather, in between games is when I'm like, "Oh man, like maybe we could try this out. Maybe instead of doing this, we do this." And then my doer accepting that, being able to like think it through a little bit, and then going and executing, way better than anything in the moment that I could come up with. So figure that out. Figure how you wanna talk to yourself. That is not a crazy idea, but I think in competition, um, we always expect ourselves to be able to execute at 100%, and when we can't, that's when we get really frustrated. That's when we get tilted, and that's when things start to fall apart. So figure out how it is that you want to talk to yourself in the middle of a game. How you want to be able to trust your teller and trust your doer, and have them trust one another as well. Really important and really good. Um, Let me know in the comments down below, like what that looks like for you. When do you tell yourself to change things? When do you tell yourself, um, what needs to be different? And when do you feel like you execute best? Is it when you're telling yourself that in the game? Is it after the game? Is it outside of the game? You know, figure that out and let me know what you think. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and all those classic YouTube things. Have a good one.